Welcome to the Coffee with Closers show, where we interview real investors that are doing real deals in this current market about how they are finding, funding, and flipping the deals. We talk about what they are doing that is working and the things they did that didn't work so that you can save time and money as you become a real investor. Welcome to the Coffee with Closers show. Hey, welcome back to another Coffee with Closers. This is the real deal. You know it. You've been here before. You've seen our shows. This is where we interview real investors doing real deals in a real market so that you can get the real information. And I am happy to have one of the nicest guys and a real investor on this one with us, and his name is Matt. Matt, you with us? You know, say your last name for me again.
Aitchison.
Aitchison.
That's why I go by Matty A, man, because nobody can say
Matty A. You know what?
Easy.
I was going to try to say it, and I was like, I better not.
You would be the 1 millionth person who has not been able to pronounce my name. So you're all good, dude.
I love it. All right. So, guys, Matt is doing some pretty cool stuff out there. I mean, not only is he in the residential world, he's also in the commercial world. I mean, the guy will blow you away when you just have a casual conversation with him because he's into hotels, he's into strip centers, he's into vineyards, he's into flips. I mean, look, there is no place small with Matty A, right?
Got to go big, baby.
And you know what? That's a good point because going big sometimes scares people, but really it's just a mindset.
It's 100% a mindset. I mean, if you think about it, it takes the same amount of effort to achieve a big goal as it often does a small goal. Like I look at the amount of effort that went into, let's just say my commercial strip center this year. Yep. Was almost really, it was probably less time that went into a standard flip.
Wow.
So, and the difference of equity upside, the difference of cash flow,
big time.
You know, really, it just made me think. I was reading a book by Andrew Schwartzman, who's the founder of Blackstone. Many of you know the kind of romanticized journey of the Blackstone hedge fund and how it's turned into what it's turned into today. And if you're not familiar with it, the book is called What It Takes.
I do know that book.
One of my favorite reads I've ever read. And if it doesn't get you thinking bigger, then there's something wrong with you because that book is just inspiring on so many levels. But that was one of his 25 rules to life and business was it takes the same amount of time and effort often to achieve a massive goal as it does a small goal. So you might as well go after a goal that gets you fired up to pound the pavement on every single day because you're going to run through challenges.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to face hurdles. You're going to have those self-limiting beliefs and doubts, whether it's a $10 million deal or a $100,000 deal. So you might as well go after something big and see what you grow into and are forced to expand into just by the opportunity calling you into that space.
I love it, man. You know what? That reminds me of an interview I did. Do you know Danielle Clayman?
No, I haven't heard of her.
He migrated here when he was 12, and he has a technology called Rehab Evaluator.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So he does development, and that's exactly what he was saying. He was like, Zach, he's like, what it would take me to remodel a duplex and get it positioned would be longer than what it takes me to find a piece of land and build a duplex on it. He's like, and I make even more. I get better rents. I have more equity in it. And I was just like, ding, 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 ding. Like this is that whole think big model, right?
It is. Once you go up, into those higher levels too, you realize that the people aren't that much different from you.
Right.
They still have the same limiting beliefs that you have.
Right.
There's more zero involved, right? A little bit more risk, but there's also ways to hedge those risks creatively and limit your exposure.
Well, and you also
you're
able to pull bigger and better investors too in the bigger deals, right?
Bigger and better investors, bigger and better assets, bigger and better cash flow and equity upside, and also less and less competition. When you start going up in price, not everybody can play at that level, right? So you start seeing the herd thin out a little bit as well.
And here's what else I know from personal experience. Like, investors that I bring in on smaller deals are much different when it comes to their neediness than the investors I bring in on bigger deals. Like, they're just like, all right, here we go, rock and roll. I'll see you on our monthly meeting or our quarterly report meeting, right? Where the smaller investors, they're like, got it. What do you got going on? Like this? Why are you painting it that color? Why are you doing? I'm like,
you're like, dude, off, you gave me $3,000, bro. Chill out, right?
It's like, look, I will write you a check for that. Just back off.
Yeah, well, it is that barrier of entry, right? You can think about it in the education or the coaching space, right? A $7 barrier of entry might attract a different type of clientele or customer than a $15,000 product or coaching client, right?
100%. 100%.
Same thing in the real estate investment world and when you're talking about physical assets.
So let's dig in, man. I got a lot of questions to ask you. Actually, I've got 11 questions to ask you.
I got 11 plus or minus answers for you.
Okay. So first off, let's just take a couple of minutes. I don't want to go all day on, how great we all are, right? But I want to ask you a very specific question. What was it in your journey, Matt, that I call you Matt? Are you okay with Matt or Matt?
Yeah, okay. Whatever. We're bros, man. Whatever. Matthew, Mateo.
What was it in your journey, whenever it was 6 years ago, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, what was it in your journey? Was it a book? Was it a mentor? Was it an uncle, a cousin? Was it just burned out staring at a computer screen at work? What was it that you just said, I've had enough, or the real estate is what I want and I'm going after it? What was that turning point?
Two things for me. One, my mom was dragging me to real estate investing seminars when I was about 13, 14, 15 years old, when she was very interested in it. And she was, essentially buying the programs. She was working full-time, single mom, corporate America. So she would essentially go to these events, buy a lot of these courses. And like most of the people, for one reason or another, life getting in the way, putting it on the shelf and, collecting dust and never anything coming to fruition because of it.
Right.
And I would go in there and read on these things. And I remember seeing speakers up on stage and them reviewing, their big checks and, the romanticism at, 13, 14, 15, when you're like, oh, I want to make money. I want to be a millionaire. I want to do all these great things. That was just the little tiny spark that was ignited inside my my career belly, I guess you could say, when I was younger.
How old were you then?
I was maybe 14, 15 years old. Fast forward to when I graduated from college, I'd been working for a small business in Santa Barbara, and that was kind of my first exposure to entrepreneurship. And I'd worked my way up to being this guy's right-hand man, and he wanted me to take over his book of business. And it was still kind of falling under the classification of a JOB to me. And I said, you know what? I want to be my own boss. I want to have unlimited earning potential. I want to, be able to help people achieve their goals in the process. I want to design that lifestyle, have the freedom to spend time and experiences with who I want, when I want. But I don't want to just check all those boxes and generate an income. I want to be in a space that also allows me to build wealth in the process of doing those things.
Right.
And all I could keep coming back to was, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book that I picked up on I think it was my junior year of college, and real estate kept calling my name. And when I moved back to Sacramento, I was interviewing for like $30,000, $40,000 jobs that my, piece of paper, my diploma could get me. And I kept coming across these Craigslist ads of, come be a student, we'll mentor you for free. Little did I know, right, what that meant. But I ended up finding a real estate mentor. I worked for that person for 10 months for free. And this was back in 2010 and 11 when you could sneeze and come across a foreclosure and make 30, 40K, 50K a pop. And I was doing all the work and I was making no money. This guy was barely doing anything, just raising capital. And I learned that whole process. I learned what to do, what not to do. And I said, man, I can do this for myself. And that was kind of the light bulb moment of going, I'm going to do this for myself. And that's really where the journey began.
Awesome. So at 14 or 15, you were blessed to have a mother that drugged you along, that sparked the interest.
Mama A.
9 years ago, you really said, I'm going all in.
Yeah. Yeah, I bought my first property when I was 22, and my first flip, I ended up making a little over $106,000 net profit.
Good job.
Before taxes. And that was the time, and I was living at home with my dad, that, cliched story of broke at home, credit card debt, no money to my name. That literally was my scenario, my case. And did a hard money first, a private money second, including the funds to pay the first while I was flipping it, and paid everybody else out after, and still had $106,000 net left over. And I said,
that'll get you excited.
This is something that I can rinse and repeat. I just need to go find more opportunities, because the money found the opportunity when I found it, came to the opportunity once I found it. And so a couple hundred flips later, using none of my own money, I was using that as one of my vertical income pillars of generating, more revenue, and using that vertical income to go out and buy horizontal and, passive income streams that kicked off more cash flow and started chipping away at that financial freedom number.
You said 20, you were what? 20 what?
22 when I bought my first one.
So you're what, 31
31 now? Yep.
Wow, look at you, man.
Yep.
22. I thought I started young at 24, 25, something like that.
Well, what's crazy, man, is, now I'm, being that I've been on Instagram and I put out a lot more content, you see these 15, 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds that are getting after it.
But let's be honest, Matt. Let's be honest. When I started 16 plus years ago, we didn't have access to the amount of information that's out there now. So with all the micro information that's out there, for a 15-year-old to do it, it's much easier. Like when I started, like you had to go to a seminar to find somebody. They weren't, It was not like YouTube and Facebook hammering out. I mean, it was like you had to go to a seminar, you had to find you a person, you followed that person the whole way. Now, I almost think sometimes it's even a little more confusing, because people can micro information 100 different people and then they don't do anything. But
100%.
That's a whole nother conversation.
No, I will digress on that, but I couldn't agree more, because nowadays scrolling through your news feed, right? You see 50 different people saying that they're flippers or wholesalers or, multifamily syndicators. And it's like, who do I follow? Who's really got, a track record, have real success? And unfortunate part is, and I know you've seen this, we've both shared stages with these kind of people, is, they're more marketers than they are people who are walking and what they're talking and practicing what they're preaching.
We were just talking about this before we got on live, was like stepping back, and I was blessed because I never stopped investing, like yourself,
which is,
you know what I mean?
Again, real wealth, right, is built through a real business of going after and buying physical assets. You can, push as much education and content, which you and I are both believers of, and adding value to other people. But at the end of the day, man, this is my vehicle that I will never take my eye off.
Look, you said it earlier when you were talking about your job. It wasn't wealth. Like, look, I love helping. I love educating. And guys, I'm digressing right now. We're going to dig in the deal in like 1 minute. I love educating. I really do. I never thought I'd be in love with teaching as much as I do, but here's what I also know. Teaching does not build me wealth. It doesn't. It builds me a great network. It builds me a great connections, but it doesn't build me wealth. Real estate builds me wealth. That's why I never stopped it. So, all right, man, I don't want to go off too much on all that. These guys are here for the real deal. All right,
let's go.
So I know you were talking about this retail strip. So let me just ask you an important question. Do you lean more on commercial stuff today or more on residential, or is it like 50-50? Like what's your ratio right now?
So here's what I would, for me, I'm gearing and leaning more towards commercial, and here's why. And I knew that if I wanted to get to my passive income goals of $100,000 a month from my real estate assets, when you say, okay, what's the goal, right? Because that's ultimately the question you should be asking is, what is the number that you're moving towards? And, I was doing this with one of my coaching clients the other day, and they were saying, hey, I want to make $20,000 a month in passive income. Okay, awesome, great. And what is your strategy? What's our vehicle for getting you there? And they said, well, I've bought these 4 burrs and they're kicking off about $150 a month. So, okay, well, let's do the math on that, right?
That's
if you want to make $20,000 a month and they're only kicking off $150 a month, that means you need to go out and buy 133 burrs. You need to manage 133 properties. And how many years do you think it's going to take you to get there? How many burrs do you think you can buy per year?
You buy 10 a year. I mean, that's
right.
13 years, man.
That's 13 years, right? And so I was going, okay, if my goal is 100,000 and I keep buying single families and duplexes and quadplexes, that'll get me there and it'll allow me to keep chipping away at that. And if the slow and steady, I'll still win out on that number over time. But if I want to compress that time frame for getting there, I want to accelerate that wealth building, I want to accelerate that equity upside, I'm going to have to go after some bigger assets. And then it became, okay, what are those assets, right? And as I started getting more and more clarity on what those were, that's when I started kind of then backing into, okay, what now based on the assets are the markets, are the lead generation strategies, are the financing structures for these deals. And so the last really year and a half has been building out more of it's really been kind of going back to being the rookie and the novice of, single family. I spent the last decade, I don't want to say mastering it, but I put in my 10,000 hours on single family. Right. Now it's like commercial. Okay. Different beast. I got to go back to being the student again and building out my network and the lead generation strategies
and learning.
And just checking my ego and my pride at the door every day and saying, hey, you might
know
know
what,
over here, but you don't know anything over here, brother.
That is so good you say that, because it's hard for someone who's been proven a system that's helping them, building wealth for them, and now they're going to lean into commercial. Well, you got to go back to being the rookie. You got to go back to sitting in the seminar again. You got to go back to like looking at somebody else and saying, okay, teach me now, right? So
and one of my greatest learning lessons was when I interviewed Robert Herjavec from Shark Tank. And one of the pieces that he told me was the number one best advice that he uses day in and day out in his career that has served him at the highest level. And it kind of applies in this context. And I apply it really in every aspect of my life is, I say that I'm a student of life and I'm always looking for my next teacher. And that was one of the things that he said was, everybody has something to teach you, but it's up to you to figure out what that is. So going back every single day, I'm always wearing my student hat and going, hey, I know that I don't know jack squat. I might think I do.
So would you say in the last year to 2 years, you leaned more into commercial?
Yeah, it was really just pouring the foundation, right? Of going like, hey, I don't know.
But that led you into this retail strip.
So by saying I'm going to make this a focus over the next decade, from 30 to 40, I'm going to spend all my time on commercial real estate assets and building wealth through commercial real estate. And so that's where I started kind of getting some streamlines on some different lead gen opportunities. Okay,
so let's talk that. What lead? So now you're moving into commercial, and I know they come from different sources, but one of my questions that I ask everybody that comes on here is, what are the top 3 lead sources that you're using right now to find these lead gen in the commercial space?
Yeah, well, commercial is very different from single family. So you're dealing with operators, you're dealing with real business owners, you're dealing with numbers, whereas single family, you're dealing with obviously sellers who are going to be more driven by emotion and have different motivation levels that are not tied to numbers and P&Ls. And operations, right? So on my single family side, like in my flip business and my buy and hold business in single family, my I always say 3 legs of a stool gives me a sturdy and stable foundation to at least consistently generate lead flow from. And so that is my agent relationship. I call it my army of agents. I've got thousands of agents who know what my buy criteria is that I consistently follow up with. I cultivate relationships with and get consistent deal flow on and off market. My second leg is direct mail, getting direct to hopefully those motivated sellers. And then my third one is a variation of attorneys and other vendors, as well as some pay-per-click. Pay-per-click has been more of a challenge for me this last year. I mean, my cost per deal has gone way up. So that's something that I've been playing around with a little bit and actually pulling back on being that I'm shifting more in the commercial space. Now, commercial is really, I don't want to say a good old boys and or girls network, but at the end of the day, it is. It really is, right? Because you're not getting these owner operators that are going, let me sell you could do direct mail. We've done some of those things. We've generated a few conversations.
But they run in a clique, and it's like this broker knows about this guy trying to sell. He's telling this broker's telling. No, I get it. I get it.
And the sellers are much savvier, right? Yeah, which is a good thing. And sometimes,
the negotiations that you're not coming in with pressure with these guys. No, it's got to be very logical. I'm with you, man.
So it's very numbers and economics driven, right?
That's like I just got 2 recently. One's a medical plaza, long-term tenants. Guy's hitting 80 once out. The only reason I know about it is because his niece knows he's selling. It's not listed, and she come and told me.
Yep.
And that's how he doesn't want it exposed. He doesn't want to freak his tenants out, which you run into with commercial, right?
All the time.
And then I got a 200 unit locally. I got notified of it only because it's not listed. The dad died. The son inherited all of his B-class built apartments. He builds A-class. He doesn't want these in his portfolio. So his thing is sell them, go build more, right? It's not emotion. It makes him money. You're not going to hard negotiate him. So mine right now are really just network. Would you say in your commercial marketing, is it brokers and network? Okay.
All network. And so that's, and that's really been honestly, one of my bread and butters in the single family side. And mind you, this is probably the number one most overlooked and most profitable lead generation strategy in any area of real estate. Is most people want that low hanging fruit, right? They want that quick response, quick hit. I'm getting that immediate gratification within, let's say, 30 to 150 days, right? Whereas if you are going to quote unquote call yourself a real estate investor, and this is a vehicle that you plan on building wealth through over however many, decades of your life, you intend to be doing this moving forward, creating that generational wealth. This should be a number one week in, week out focus no matter what. It should be a foundational lead generation strategy. And I always tell people it's like a farm, right? I had a really big farm over the last decade in single family that started off as raw land. But as I got out there and started building relationships, showing face, putting out content, adding value to people, making deals, going to networking events, all those things, it was like I was rototilling the dirt. And every contact that I made, I planted a seed with that person, and I would continue to harvest and really, put in the work on those relationships, water them, check in on them.
I get it. But let's talk to the person that's watching this that's not in commercial yet, right? I mean, we get the building process, but when you say network, I mean, let's say somebody's watching this and like you, when you first started, I mean, they may not have ever done a commercial. I mean, what were some of the things that you did? Did you go find meetups in town? Did you go to the commercial brokerage events? Did you just start calling brokers? I mean, what did you do to get in to find those leads?
Again, it's not, I think people overthink it a little bit. It is one of those things where it is just changing the conversation a little bit, right? So instead of I'm looking for duplexes
3-2
and triplexes, right? Now you are saying, hey, if you come across any commercial real estate that happens to, be off market or happens to be, you got to know what your buy criteria is so that you can turn people's radar on to the fact that that's when it comes across their plate, that's when they need to call Matt, right? That's when they need to call Zach. So again, it's, creating that army of people who are out on the front lines, doing the relationships at the networking events, looking on the MLS, looking on LoopNet, looking on CoStar, looking on all these different commercial real estate sites. And once they come across something that I have planted the seed in their mind is what I want, now
they bring you to the table.
Yeah, and those relationships
are scalable. Is that how the retail strip came to you?
It's exactly how it came to me.
So let's talk about that real quick. So you got this retail strip. Is it like 3 suites, 10 suites, 20 suites? I mean, how many suites are in it?
6
suites. What'd you pay for it?
I bought it for $900.
Okay. So you got 6 suites for $900,000. Is it a C class, B class? What is it?
It's a B class property, in a really good area actually. And
was it like vacant or just mismanaged?
All mismanaged and under market rents.
Gotcha.
So
you came in, raised the rents, maybe lost some tenants, brought some new tenants in.
Yep, I bought it in March and immediately came in, and this is where you make a lot of your money and your upside in commercial property, is if you can increase income and solidify those income streams with sound leases over the long term.
Yeah, so talk real quick so people understand, like, leases in commercial are different than leases in a rental property, because you can get some of these commercial tenants for 3-5 year leases, if not
longer.
I
mean, depending on what kind of asset classes, I mean, you
right. And you can also build in natural increase in rents along those years too.
Most of my leases have anywhere from a 3 to 5% annual rent increase.
Yep.
And depending on this particular commercial building is a double net. So most of the tenants are really covering pretty much all of the expenses except for my property taxes, my own insurance, things like that. So those are things that we look at and go, where's the upside here? Because if we can generate, if the trading cap rate on a building like this is 6%, and we can increase the net operating income on the building by maybe $50,000 a year, you take $50,000, right, and you divide that $50,000 by the 6% cap rate, that's adding $833,000 in equity in value to the property just by increasing the income on the property and securing that paper. So it's almost like going from flipping a physical property to flipping paper.
Yeah, it is. It's big. And I think that's the part a lot of people miss, is like how you can buy a $900,000 asset in a matter of a year to 2 years, it could be worth $2 million, right?
Yep.
Just because of doing what you're saying, controlling the rent management on it, controlling how that works. So let's talk about that. So you bought it for $900,000. It was mismanaged, low rent. So just to give people an idea, 6 suite, where's it located at, by the way?
It's in Rockland, California, which is a class area.
Know it very well.
A lot of good development going on in that area. So those are things that I'm also looking at, is going, what's going on in the area, right? Outside of what I'm going to do on my physical site and location, is there any other things that am I in the path of development? Are other areas, really improving their businesses and their, curb appeal, or is it a rundown area, right? So on this opportunity, I saw that there was definitely some ability for us to go in there and improve the physical condition of the asset and the external facade of the building. And by doing that, we can also go in there and justify bringing all of the tenants up to market rent and locking them into longer term leases. There was a couple tenants that I felt were not bad tenants, but again, when you look at the whole culture and the ecosystem of that building, we really want to make it something where everybody feels good about whoever, and the patrons of that building, whoever's pulling into their parking lot, right? So
let me hit you with some straightforward questions.
Let's do it.
So you bought it for $900,000. How much capital did you have to put into it to get it stabilized?
So I put into... So this is the cool part of this opportunity. So I bought it for $900,000.
Yep.
And I ended up I got a first $700K first private money at 6%.
Awesome.
I got $200,000 second at 8%.
Okay.
Now,
what about the improvement capital?
All the improvement capital was out of pocket, which was really very minimal. It was about $25,000, just some exterior paint, lighting, trash cans, stripe and seal in the parking lot. So
you're $950 into it, roughly.
$950 into it.
So what was the gross collected rents when you bought it?
Gross collected rents, I got my spreadsheet here in front of me, was...
When you bought it?
We were at $91,000
Annualized or monthly?
annualized.
Where, now that you've repositioned it and you're getting it on a good track, where is it now projected annualized?
Annualized now, we are at $134,000.
Oh, look at you, bro.
So just by going in there and doing that, now I've gotten the value of the building up to where I'm going through a refinance.
Yeah.
I'm going to be able to get the first 700 paid off. I'm going to be able to get the second 200 paid off. And I'm going to essentially have bought in that commercial asset using none of my own money.
Yep.
Just by one, obviously making sure the numbers worked, and I calculated
Where's
that
the
out.
value at it now?
Where's the value of the property now? It's about 1.35 right now.
Golly, man, look, virtual high five.
Virtual high five right there. So, and it's dropping about 3,900, between 3,900 and 4,100 a month net to the bottom line.
Love it. All right, man. I'm going to shoot into 2 other questions. I'm going to speed up my questions. We've been chatting it up. What did you do right on that deal?
I analyzed it properly and made sure.
Bought it right.
I bought it right and made sure that, we were really going to be able to reposition it where we wanted to reposition it, because anytime I take other people's money on a first and a second like that, you damn well better be sure that you're going to be able to take it to a traditional lender. They're going to be able to look at the new value, agree on that value, give you long-term traditional financing, and get everybody whole plus the returns out on that. Or else obviously I would have been coming to the table to, get them paid out on.
Completely different outcome too. So that's right. You just going over, you definitely bought this one right. You did good on this one. What would you say that, and I know wrong's a tough word, but look, everybody likes to talk about their success, but we know we don't all hit home runs. Even when the deal is as good of a deal as the one you have, there's something in that deal that you probably would have been like, man, if I would have done this different, this could have been this. What's one thing in this deal that either went wrong or you could have done different that you took a learning lesson away from?
Two things. I could have negotiated a better deal.
Oh, okay.
I could have negotiated a better deal. And we allowed time in negotiating always creates challenge. And so I let too much time in the negotiating go on to where I felt like I had to close in order to secure this and lock it up. Whereas if I would have kept them at the negotiating table, we would have compressed that negotiating, their motivation level of getting this thing done. I could have negotiated a better deal. So that was one thing. The other thing was underestimating the amount of time and effort and energy that was going to go into renegotiating leases or as 2 of the tenants left, the amount of rent up time, I got lucky, to be honest. It probably should have, on average, taken a lot longer to get tenants in there through my network and through, the grace of God. I got 2 really great tenants in there that allowed me to, lock in that income and go to the refinance faster. So those were things that I underestimated that really could have hurt me in the long run.
So Matt, what would you say the time frame was from the time you acquired the lead till you got it stabilized and you were ready to entertain the refinance? Was that 6 months? I got the lead last year in December.
I closed on it in early March, and we just locked in our final tenant.
So about a year.
Beginning in November.
So about a year.
Yep.
Yeah, that's about standard. Year from lead to stabilize refinance, but about 6 months from actual acquisition to stabilization to refinance.
Yeah, and we didn't have a significant amount of construction and tenants to work around and things like that. So depending on, what that scope of work looks like on your construction side of your reposition or what your reposition does consist of, those are timelines that obviously you're going to want to make sure you really have a grasp on to,
I'm with you. Man, this is good stuff right here. You're in it now, man. You're talking all the right language. I like it. It's like I'll run into people that say, I'm going to be doing commercial and and all this. And then I hear them talking. I'm like,
Well, it's easy. A lot of people are good at talking, right? It's just getting into the trenches. And Mind you, I'm feeling my way forward. I've always been somebody to jump in the deep end with a cannonball instead of dipping my toes in. That's how I did my single family stuff where, you know, if you overthink it too long, you're going to look back, you know, 3 years later with still no property sitting on the sidelines, where I've just always been one of those people where I don't care if I strike out. I'll get in the batter's box.
Jump in.
A couple pitches go by, and then I'll start swinging. I know that eventually I'm going to start foul tipping. I'm going to start getting a single. I'm going to hit a double. Eventually, I'm going to round the bases and start putting some runs up on the board.
Yeah, and then you'll get to where you can control where you hit it too. So
100%.
So let's talk about this, and then I got some hot fire questions for you. What advice would you give to someone watching this that's maybe never done commercial before? You know, what's some advice, like in a matter of a couple of minutes? What would you, if you were sitting there talking to somebody brand new that's interested in doing what you're doing, what's the best advice you'd give?
Number one is don't be afraid to partner with somebody who's got more experience than you. I've always been a believer, and this has been a lot of my approach in various aspects that are new to me, is finding the partner who has the experience, has the credibility, has the balance sheet, has the team, the tools, the resources, the strategies to help you shorten your learning curve, accelerate the results you want to get, to be able to avoid the mistakes that you're probably going to make otherwise. There's nothing wrong with owning a slice of a watermelon than 100% of a shriveled up raisin, or nothing. So don't be afraid to partner with somebody when you're going into some of these things, because if you're, again, going with the crock pot mentality instead of the microwave mindset, you're playing the long-term game, one deal is going to be something that all of those things you learn, that confidence, that experience you gain, that credibility that now lays on your tool belt, you have the ability to go rinse and repeat over and over and over again. So
well, think about your one deal. I mean, in 12 months, you took it from a 900,000 acquisition. Did you say 1.2 or 1.3 value?
1.35, 1.4.
Yeah, so think about that. That's like almost $500,000 increase in net worth. You know what I mean? On one deal. I mean, that's huge, man.
Well, and it's dropping again, almost $4,000 a month to my bottom line. That's chipping away at my 100K that I want to be hitting.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, you made a good point earlier in our discussion that it was a lot about mindset. And I know that you guys do a lot with helping people overcome mindset. And you do this free thing every single month where you like reward people for coming on and checking out what you guys do with the mindset. And so what is it? You give them something for them sharing, or?
Yeah, on the Millionaire Mindcast each and every week, which is my podcast, we have one segment on Wednesdays called Wealth Building Wednesdays. And on that show, we answer real wealth building questions from our listeners that tune in. And just one of the ways we want to drive as much traffic and questions and value as possible is at millionairemindcast.com. We do a monthly giveaway where it's some kind of wealth building book. It's 2 coaching sessions with myself and one of our other wealth advisors, Rich Life Planner, a $50 Visa gift card. And so all they got to do is just enter a question that they want us to go to work and get them answers on.
I love that. You reward them for actually getting answers to their questions.
Yep, that's exactly it.
So guys, we're going to put that link in this description, whether you're watching this on YouTube, Facebook, if you're in our podcast, you know, go check these guys out. I mean, these guys are the real deal, or they wouldn't be on this show. That's for sure. You know what I've realized over the time I've been doing these? Like, we weed out a lot of people. Because when we say to them, hey, look, this is Coffee with Closer, we got to talk about a real deal. They're like, oh, well.
I read about a deal on YouTube.
They're like, well, I can tell you about my first deal. I'm like, no. Like, it's got to be one that's recent.
2011.
Right. We weed them out. Man, you shared a lot of great stuff, Matt. I love it, buddy. And I know you got things that you need to run off to, but before we do, and myself, I got some hot fire questions I want to throw at you. You ready for these?
Let's rock and roll.
Okay, man, here we go. Drum roll, please. All right, I don't have a drum roll, but here it is. What's your best place that you've been on vacation?
Best place I've been on vacation has probably been either Machu Picchu, hiking the Inca Trail, or backpacking into the second largest cave in the world in Vietnam.
I don't think anybody has said that yet.
Those were two pretty cool experiences.
That's making it happen right there, man. Yeah. All right. What was your very first automobile?
First automobile was an Isuzu Rodeo.
Boom. That's always a good one to ask. Favorite season or holiday?
Man, my favorite season is the fall time.
Yeah, mine too. I love it.
And really just Thanksgiving time.
Yeah.
No presents, just family, food, creating memories, kicking it.
Thanksgiving, Christmas, all of it's right together.
Yeah.
It's all about family involvement. I love it too. All right. Best podcast besides yours and besides mine. What's a good podcast that you listen to?
One of my favorite podcasts is Ed Milet's. I love the Ed Milet show. I really like Andy Frisella's MFCEO podcast. If you can get past all his
I saw him live at the Sperber event. I was hanging out backstage with him. He's just a cool dude, man.
Dude, he keeps it real.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. His message and his word is genuine, authentic, and it's got some real credibility.
I agree with you, man. I agree with you. All right, man. What's your favorite food?
Favorite food is always going to be a steak.
Get that
Give
protein.
me a good ribeye, man, and I'm happy.
Are you early to rise or do you sleep in, man?
I'm a 4 a.m. every single day.
Ooh,
4 a.m. 4 to 6 a.m. is my good morning routine. My time really to recharge, but also to get clarity in what I'm gonna.
Then?
I usually go to bed around 10:30.
Yeah, man, get it, son. Get it. All right, man. Here we go. What's your favorite book?
Favorite book is really business-wise. It's going to have to be Traction by Gino Wickman. That's just one of my favorite all-time business books that really taught me how to run my business like a business.
Yep.
And, my favorite, I would say, is like personal development book is always going to come back to Extreme Ownership by Jocko. That book changed the way I took ownership of essentially everything in my life.
Right. I love it. All right, man. Favorite movie of all times?
Ooh. So two super throwbacks that are just sentimental for me as a kid is White Christmas with Bing Crosby.
Yeah.
And The Great Race. Those are two old schools, but I will say one of my favorite new movies that I've probably watched over 150 times that you might have not had a guest say this is my girl Moana. She's holding it down. I just love everything about that movie. Yeah, I got two daughters. So.
Okay, that's why I was like, my daughter watched it 100 times too.
Oh
man.
My gosh.
And still walks around the house singing it.
Yep. That's a good one. And then, Jumanji. Yeah, I laugh my ass off every time I watch the first one. I can't wait to see the second one.
Oh yeah, man. I like all those two movies. There's a lot to be said in those little.
So many classics though that I missed, but I went old school and I went kiddo school.
Well, here's the thing, man. When you have kids, what I don't think a lot of people that realize that don't have kids is, man, these kid movies, they throw in adult humor in there that kids don't get, and you're back there laughing, and their kids are like, "What are you laughing at?" Nothing. Nothing. All right, man. Listen, Matty A, I enjoyed having you on here, man. You dropped some bombs today. I appreciate you very much, and opening the eyes for people to why think small, right? Go big. Like, there's nothing different. It's the same amount of energy. It's the same amount of time, just much bigger results. I loved your insight on mindset. I loved your insight on, like, what you should do if you're brand new. You had a lot of good things. Thanks for sharing marketing. You really did share a lot today, man. I appreciate you for that. Guys, check the link out. Go see what he's up to. Jump on his podcast. Get engaged with Matty. I like that. Matty A.
Matty A, brother. Thank you so much for having me on.
No, man, I appreciate you. Thanks for entertaining my questions, man.
I got you.
Hey, guys, this is Zack Attack, and I'm out with another Coffee with Closers show. Remember, be on all of them, and the only way to be on all of them is to subscribe down here somewhere, wherever that button is. Beep, beep, beep. Hit the little bell, and you will get notified every time we put one out. Until then, I'll see you. Be cool. Bye.